Welcome back, Art 1-2. Welcome to your demonstration for drawing with the Viewfinder. So what you're going to need is your still life image, old school wooden pencil, one of those yellow or cream colored papers to go underneath your hand, and then this right here is the Viewfinder. So you have a little cut Viewfinder in your folder of papers. We don't need the ruler anymore. Let me put that away. And of course, your final draft. So for the Viewfinder, this is what I recommend, is to find like eyeball halfway. So give yourself like a halfway mark. And then I'm going to do a little mark for half of halfway. So then I'm going to divide the remaining side spaces in half again. So we're drawing with a Viewfinder, so we have extremely accurate proportions. So it helps us make judgments. So I'm going to start easy with the bottle. I'm going to put something underneath my hand because the bottle is at the top of the paper. Okay, and then I have my image right next to me. And I'm going to start with the mouth or the rim of the bottle. And I'm going to put my Viewfinder on top of that, and I'm going to look at what box am I in. I'm in E1. E1. Okay, so E1. And I'm going to look at how, and you can divide, if you're going to divide, go super, super lightly. So I'm going to just give myself like my halfway marks. Very, very lightly. If you feel like it's easier if you go ahead and actually divide, that's okay too. Just know that you're going to have to erase all of that. So as long as it's super light, it's okay with me. Okay, so I'm going to look at how the mouth of the bottle comes over to like halfway. It's like half of halfway tall, and then it kind of takes up this remaining space. So I'm also going to look at how it's slightly curved. And then by about halfway, you have that piece. Kind of sinks over. Sinks in. That needs to be a little bit bigger. And comes down. Okay, so then I'm going to go to the other side. And it's about half of halfway. So I'll give myself a little guideline. Okay, so then I'm looking at overall quality of line. Still trying to draw super lightly. Okay, so then I'm just going to make a general kind of guideline. That still looks a little funky right there. Fix that part. Okay. So then I look at how this starts here, but it ends like halfway here. So I'm just looking at how it slightly slopes out. Okay, then turning over to the next one. So now I'm in D2. So look at how this kind of comes down. The curve hits the line about half of halfway, about like here. That's where that curve of the handle passes through. And I would say like I can see the inside of it a little bit here. So you're going to give yourself little marks to kind of follow. So it's almost halfway here where it kind of slopes down. So once I have the marks on there, so I'm going to look at how far over it comes here. I can see a little bit coming through here. And it probably ends. So now I'm in D3. Okay, so it does end at halfway. And it kind of curves a little bit, just giving myself that curve in there. And so now I have like all these little, it's like connect the dots in a way. So now you have something to follow, like you're mapping out your drawing for yourself. And then you can look at like the overall quality of the line for what you're drawing. Kind of using your guidelines. And to remember, you're trying to hold your pencil in the middle. I mean, if you can still draw and hold it at the end, that's great. If you're a little bit of a sketchy drawer, I mean, that's okay. Just know that you're gonna have to go back and clean it up. Okay, so now I wanna look at how far down that piece actually comes according to my viewfinder. It's about halfway. Okay, so a little lower than what I have. I'm looking at like this top part. Where does that line up? Maybe like here. I'll bring that in a little bit. Okay. So making adjustments. So that's how you're going to kind of move through using a viewfinder. I'm going to skip to the flower because I feel like that was the part that you guys had the most difficulty with in your sketches. Everything else is fairly simple. I will post a finished drawing so you know like what level of detail you need in the actual drawing. And we're going to spend a couple days drawing this. You're going to get a demonstration. Actually, let's come back to the flower. You're going to get a demonstration for each item. So I'm just looking for contour outlines right now. So I will go ahead and finish the bottle actually. So I'd say the slope comes like half of halfway and I'm in D4, yep, okay. So I'm looking at, I kind of make my marks, but then look at my slope. And then that curve is a little bit past halfway here, so halfway, a little bit past. Okay, and then where does it come down? So we do see like the top of the leaf in this next one, which is C5. So I'm double checking. Am I in C5? Yep, okay. So I can see a little piece of the top of the leaf, which ends a little bit past halfway. Okay, so then that bottle pretty much ends like half of halfway. So you're just focusing on contour outlines first. All right, so you can either go and do the whole side of the bottle, but I think I'm gonna do the apple next. So I'm gonna kind of work my way around and we will probably come back to the flower at the very end because you're gonna get better as you go. And so I'm not so concerned with, you know, having everything being exactly perfect. We just want it to be in the best proportion possible. All right, so looking at my apple, and I am in B4, okay. So now I'm gonna put something under my hand so I don't have hand oils happening all over my paper. Okay, looking at how it comes up pretty high, probably about here, and then on the edge it curves down to about halfway. kind of slopes down before it gets there. All right, I'm gonna come over to the other side. So I'm just focusing on contour outline, which ends like here. And then I'll come back and draw the inside and the stem and all that. So we're gonna come back. So I'm looking at where does the apple end in A5? About halfway-ish. Okay, so coming down to A6, where does the bottom of the apple go? Slightly above halfway. And it kind of squares off at the bottom. Okay, over in B6, we have a curvature part, kind of comes up slightly. And then the apple passes through the grid like here. And then like here, and you can see a tiny bit in the C column. And then we'll draw the leaf overlapping slightly, but I'm gonna just draw this part, connecting my lines. So we're just working on contour outlines. Okay, so then I would say I'm ready for the leaf. I'm gonna flip it up. What do I see in there? Okay, it is cloth. It is cloth in there with that little piece of triangle. Okay, so I'm in B6, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I'm looking at how the leaf actually touches like right here, and it comes down halfway, half of half, so it comes down to about half of halfway. And it comes a little bit above halfway here, and it kind of like flattens out. Okay, then I see a little piece of it like right there. Okay, so then I can see a little corner of it in 7B, little tiny corner. Okay, so then now I'm in 7C. 7C. Okay, looking at where the pointy tip of it is. So it's like halfway, half of halfway, right above that. So there's the point of the tip of the leaf, and then looking at where does it pass through the grid over here. So I would say that is between halfway and half of halfway. So maybe like here. So then I'm gonna kind of give myself a guideline for the edge of it, kind of curves over into D6 and 7 slightly, and then comes back in. I feel like it doesn't curve out as much right here. Bring that in slightly. Okay. So when you start analyzing the shapes of things, it becomes a little bit different than what your left brain would tell you what a leaf looks like, or probably what you even drew in your sketches. All right, let's do the shell. All right, so we are in 8 and 9 and 10, and we're in C, D, and a little bit in E. All right, so I'm gonna start at the very top of it, and I'm gonna go D8, 8D. And it's not quite halfway, it's a little bit below. And we'll add the lines later. We're just working on the contour outline. We'll put the viewfinder back on here and actually make more precise. Okay, so it looks like it kind of curves over and it ends like half of halfway. Kind of slopes down. Then I have that little piece that goes like over the line. All right, coming back over here so we can see a little bit of it in the corner of 8C. Okay, so the curve comes out like half of halfway. And then where does it line up? About a little bit above half of halfway over here. Okay. And then where does that pass to the grid? Okay, so I do think this curve comes a little bit sloped further out. Looking at where it passes through the grid. Okay, and then where does the curvature end? Pretty much halfway down here. So I'm gonna look at how it kind of scoops in a little bit. Okay, and I can see a little piece of that corner, and that scoops in and it comes half of halfway. Slopes down. Oh, we got some waviness to draw. Okay, so I'm looking at where does it end in D10. D10, it ends like half of halfway. Okay, so we know it runs across this way. So about half of halfway here, there's a curve that curves up. A little bit, there's a curve that curves up right here. And another one that curves up there. So I gave myself little marks of where it curves up. And then I mean, it's pretty subtle. And it curves like right along that edge. I can see only a little bit in a tiny little corner of E10. Okay, so it curves out a little bit into E9 and then slopes back in. Okay, and then that little corner. Okay, so and kind of erase all of my little marks. We don't really need those. All right, so we have just the contour outline of the shell. And then moving on, let's do the rest of the bottle and then the piece of wood. And we'll do that in part 1. And then for the drawing the final draft. And then part 1 and 2 of the drawing the final draft, you'll be able to kind of finish up. So there's a part 1 and 2 for drawing the finishing. There's a part 1 and 2 for like the actual finished steps. So in the next part, we will do the rest of the bottle and the wood. And then we may have to then come back and maybe start the flower and then come back and finish the cloth. Okay, congratulations, looking good.